Hello and thank you for the invitation. So when we talk about engaged art or even useful art, it is of course a provocation. After 100 years of fighting for the autonomy of art, after decades of learning that the main quality of art is its ambiguity, after years of repeating that art is about asking questions and not giving answers, suddenly there's this persistent call for an art that is useful, for direct engagement, for artistic activism, for interventions into the political realities of our societies and economies. And of course this call is not new, it has precursors like the productivists, for example, in clear opposition to Naum Garbo's dictum that constructivism, the most en vogue art in post-revolutionary Russia, should stay exclusively within the realm of abstraction. Artists like Alexei Gan, Rodchenko or Varvara Stepanova demanded that art should play a practical, a useful role in society. And 50 years later, Joseph Beuys founded the Free International University and claimed, "My greatest work of art is being a teacher." From then on, but with renewed intensity since the early 90s, the concept of socially engaged art has continuously developed further, and however, it is only since the manifold political and economical crisis that we are all very aware of around the world in the last couple of years that the idea of activist art has become a main topic within the contemporary art world, or even a buzzword, one could say. So because whether it was on Tahrir Square, on Zuccotti, Syntagma or Taksim Square, in front of the Kremlin, in Japan after Fukushima, in the iconic architecture of Brasilia or under the umbrellas of Hong Kong, of course always there were artists involved from the very beginning, were there in the very beginning of launching new movements. But the question that still occurred and was very present all the time is, what role does art itself play in this? I think we have been witnessing another paradigm shift in the relationship between art and politics. One could say that the generation of philosophers that derived their theoretical concepts from their own very concrete political experiences and engagements, like in the leftist groups in France and Italy in the 1970s, was followed by generations of philosophers and artists and curators and so on that continued these thoughts, but too often without connecting them back to their own contemporary realities. So we became used to call concepts, cultural theories and artworks political, even if they were only very distantly based on theories that themselves were already abstracted from the concrete political impulses that had sparked them. So one could say a very homeopathic second-hand idea of political philosophy and art has become the main guideline of contemporary cultural discourse. The constant awareness of the complexity of the notions of truth, reality or even politics seem to have maneuvered us into a dead-end street. Either we are too simple or too complex, too populist or too stuck in hermetic aromatism. Either we include too much or we exclude too many. We have reached a point where the necessary awareness that everything is contingent and relative often has become an excuse for intellectual relativism. I think there's the growing demand for socially engaged participatory art, for interventionism and art activism, for an art that gets involved very directly and hands-on, is also a clear reaction to this relativism. As the Cuban artist Tania Bruguera, one of the main advocates of this movement and also part of this conference, declared in her introduction to Useful Art, quote, "It has been too long since we have made the gesture of the French Revolution the epitome of the democratization of art. We do not have to enter the Louvre or the castles, we have to enter the people's houses, people's lives. That is where useful art is." I guess it is not surprising that such claims immediately bring back the same old and a bit lame question that has accompanied all avant-gardes and has defined the aesthetic discourse of the 20th century. Is this still art? But repeating this question is even more redundant, since most answers have been already given. Socially engaged, participatory and useful art practices often are based on artistic strategies from the 60s and 70s. Installation art, performance art, conceptual art, all of them focused on creating situations, creating reality, rather than representing them. They emphasized process and social relations, and they question the notion of authorship and individualism, and in doing so critique the capitalist system. Site-specific practices not only taught us how to use non-art spaces, but also to understand, for example, theater stages as site-specific or specific sites. The idea of participation and intervention radicalized the understanding of audiences and redefined the very gradual and often misconceived differences between voluntary and involuntary participation. But obviously, the call for usefulness is also problematic, because it seems to agree and be very much along line with social democratic instrumentalizations of art as a mere tool for social work and as an appeasement strategy. But I think this underestimates the subversive qualities of art. The most powerful examples of socially engaged art are far from fulfilling social democratic demands for symbolic gestures. They try to create alternative realities or open a space for radical imagination. Tanya Bruguera's Immigrant Movement International established a political party and a union-like organizations for illegal immigrants in Queens, New York. Jonas Stahl's New World Summit creates alternative political spheres for organizations banned from the democratic discourse, meaning they are considered terrorists by Western democracies. The Berlin Center for Political Beauty, inspired by the New York Yes Man, has brought attention to issues neglected on the front pages of newspapers and made politicians read with targeted media campaigns. The Austrian Wochenklausur finds ever new ways of shifting money and attention from the art market to social causes. They are a classic in this field, of course. And Santiago Sierra or Artur Żmijewski point in extremely uncanny ways at wounds that we try so hard to ignore, while on the other hand, Paul Althammer or the late Christoph Schlingensief try to be part of the complex process of healing. These are just, in a way, random or personal examples, but these are all works that do not offer easy answers. They don't give easy comfort. They are useful not only through their direct engagement, but also by subtly or polemically critiquing the capitalist status quo. Their practice is symbolic and actual at the same time. And they shift the emphasis from the ambiguity of the artwork that was fetishized so much to the ambiguity of our own lives. In very different ways, they all underscore Tanya Bruguera's call that we should bring Duchamp's urinal back to the restroom where it can be of use again. Thank you.